this time of asking questions. And one of the questions that we asked each other was, who's in charge of the Devar Torah tonight? And we went back and forth. We said, you know what, let's do it together. And we thought that would be really fun. So.
Twice as long.
No. Put us on a timer right now, you'll see. So because it's about all these questions, I thought I'd start with the simplest question of all. Rabbi Stern, what's a takeaway that you have for this year's Passover?
Great. So, when you approach the holiday, you approach it with the world the way it is when you go into the holiday, with your life the way it is. So you always take away something different. So I want to start with a context setting and then tell you what I'm taking away. So the book of Genesis is all about families. Family dynamics, family dysfunction, all that. Exodus, and you have to recognize the Seder is built upon the Exodus, but the Haggadah is an evolution of the rabbis who take the first impulse of Exodus and build on it. So Exodus is about nation building. While we focus on the liberation, the redemption, the longest part of Exodus is about the journey through the desert. What happens in the desert? The Israelites become a nation. So the Haggadah is built on that principle. And what's a nation? It's a nation that's bound by, looks like my microphone is having some problems. Yeah, maybe I'll use the handheld. It's over here. I'll grab that one. And I'll turn this off. It's working fine. Test 1, 2. How are we doing? All right. It's working fine when we tested it, but you never know. So anyway, as a nation, they traveled through the desert, and the storytelling, and obviously not every bit of Exodus is historically accurate, but it's sort of a composite of how the Israelites become a nation. Bound by God, bound by laws. They field an army. They establish the trappings of nationhood. They eventually will have a monarchy. They ask for a king, judges to rule the people, religious leaders. That's a nation. So the Haggadah comes along, and it speaks to the nation. And the rabbis say, what does it mean to build a nation that is collective of the people? And we recognize that sitting around your Seder table are individuals. So how do we speak to individuals about life and about what's going on? So last Shabbat I was at Beth Ham for a bat mitzvah, as just sitting in the congregation like you. And Rabbi Noah Farkas, who is the director of the Los Angeles Jewish Federation, was actually called on to give the Devar Torah. So this is in his name because he shared this idea, and I walked away saying, wow, I have to spread that word because I thought it was so profound. So the Haggadah continues that building of a nation, and there are two phrases in the Haggadah that I want to focus on, or I should say two passages. So the first passage, V'hi sha'amda lavotenu v'lanu. So, and this is the promise I'll read the entire passage in English. And this is the promise that has stood for our ancestors and for us. For it was not only one person who rose to destroy us in every single generation, but many people rise up to destroy us. But the Holy One, blessed be God, saved us from those hands. Okay, so that passage operates under the principle of past is prologue. It's about Pharaoh. Pharaoh was this evil individual who rose up to destroy the Jewish people. And look, just like Pharaoh, it's going to happen again and again and again and again. It's sort of the melancholy view of Jewish history. Someone's going to rise to destroy us, and it tragically is a fact of Jewish history. It's true. And we acknowledge that. In fact, in a few days, you're heading to Poland with a group of people to bear witness to one of the worst tragedies. Of course, one individual rose up and undermined the integrity of the Jewish people. We do that because we compel ourselves to remember. That's who we are as Jewish people. We remember the past, we bring it with us. It's a pilgrimage, and we build museums, we build memorials, we make pilgrimage to the camps to remember these things. But if that's the only way we define our Jewishness, if that's the only way we identify us with the tragedies, with those who rose up to kill us, with the fact that we survived those horrible times, well, that's a tragic view of Jewish history. It's a painful view. That's how it's been, that's how it's always going to be, and such it is. It's our job is just to survive. If the Haggadah stopped with that passage of V'hi sha'amda, that's the message we take away as a nation and as individuals. But here's what happens. It adds another important passage, and these two passages stand at opposite ends of a way of understanding the world. The second passage is, B'chol dor vador, chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim. In every generation, every person must see themselves as if they personally came out of Egypt. They personally experienced redemption. And you shall tell your child, it goes on that day, because of what God did for me when I came out of Egypt, we're celebrating this holiday. It was not only our ancestors for whom God did it, but it was for us along with them too. And God brought us to the promised land. So beautiful that Lauren began this, Cantor Lauren began this with a song about Jerusalem, because it reminds us that Passover Seder doesn't leave us hanging without a nation. It says, L'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim, next year you will arrive. So this is the message of redemption and hope. If the Hisha Amda is about the evil people who will rise up and destroy us, B'chol Dor Vador is about looking to the future and hope and telling our children that this all happened for them. And we call Passover the Feast of Freedom. We sing, we laugh, we eat, we drink a lot, we hope. It's all about spring, rebirth, renewal. And we end, as I said, with the Shana Haba Yerushalayim. So which orientation is better? Is it the, every generation someone's going to rise up and take us down? Or is it the, we're free, we can look to the future, we're heading to Jerusalem? The answer is neither. The answer is you have to have both. You have to have those who know about the past and carry it with them and recognize the messages. And you have to take that message and turn it into one of optimism and hope. And that's what's so beautifully unique about the Jewish people, is we can have those same contradictory ideas in our, I should say very different contradictory ideas in our heads at one time, and we don't explode. We just know who we are, we know what we carry, and we know that it's our mission to remember, and it's our mission to look to the future. So that's what I'm mulling over, I should say, this Passover.
Well, it's so
this Pesach.
powerful.
How about you?
And boy, if we're feeling that in any year more than ever, I think it'd be this year, that tension. So thank you. It's in some ways it is the definitionally, it is the definition of what we Jews have to carry, is that tension between those two things. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's why his message resonated so powerfully. Yeah. So how about you?
Well, thank you. So I'll start with an insight that I learned from a rabbi friend of ours. You shared in the name of Rabbi Farkas. I'll share in the name of Rabbi Ed Feinstein. I had the opportunity to be invited onto his, he has an online Torah study that he does every week. So he invited me right before Passover. And he shared something that was so powerful that I'd never noticed, even though it's a text I've seen a lot. I first saw it when I was a little kid, the song that we sing at the very end of the Seder. The last song in the traditional Haggadah is Chad Gadya. And it feels like a kid's song, and it acts like a kid's song, but there's something really deep that's going on inside of it. Just to remind you, you probably remember it. It's a story of a chain reaction. It starts with this goat, this little goat, and then there's a cat, and a dog, and a stick, and fire, and water, and each thing comes and overpowers the thing before it. And then in the end, we get the angel of death. The angel of death comes and overpowers the ritual slaughterer who had killed the ox. And you think that's the end of the story, but it's not. Because the last line of Chad Gadya, which really is kind of the last line of the Haggadah, is that God comes and vanquishes the angel of death. And Rabbi Feinstein shared what a powerful way it is to end this story of liberation and redemption with the angel of death being defeated by God. And it's powerful and beautiful, and it's playful because it all is packaged in this kind of kid's song, but it's got this deep message. And I've been thinking about, what does it mean to say that the angel of death is vanquished? Because it doesn't mean that we're going to live forever, even if we wanted to, even if we thought that was a really good idea. It doesn't mean that, but it means that somehow we're able to overcome what nihilism suggests to us about how the world might be, right? It's all just meaningless. What's the point of it all? It's kind of Ecclesiastes, Really, why? But meaning can vanquish that. And a life of meaning can vanquish that. Community, what we're experiencing here tonight, a life of Torah, a life of mitzvot, that can vanquish that sense of death. So I love that teaching. So thank you, Rabbi Feinstein. But then as I was preparing for the Seder, this was just a few days before Seder, but then in the Seder itself, I came across, and I can't remember where I came across this, so I can't cite it, but I came across this teaching about the beginning of the Seder. So that's the end of the Seder. What do we do at the very beginning of the Seder? I referenced it earlier. We hold up the matzah and we say, this is the bread of affliction. And then what do we do with that bread of affliction? We break it in half. And then we hide it and the afikomen and all of that. But it's amazing that we start the Seder with brokenness. And so I was trying to put those two ideas together. You know, we start with that brokenness, and through the process of retelling our story, through the process of coming together in community, through the process of doing mitzvot hand in hand, that's how we get to redemption at the end. That's how we vanquish a life without meaning.
I'm just letting that sink in, because you notice what both of us did? We took these discordant ideas and we slammed them together. That's very rabbinic, right? We like to take things that would seem like they don't belong in the same book, in the same brain, and by putting them together and saying, what do we do with that discordance? We challenge ourselves to sort of think differently and to expand our way of understanding each other, the world around us. So I'm going to throw one more piece at you. We end with Eliyahu Hanavi. It's one of the last songs we sing. Well, it's before we get to the fun stuff at the end of the Seder. We sing all those songs. But before Haggadah, I should say, we open the door. We let Elijah in. How does Eliyahu Hanavi kind of enter into your thinking about redemption and the end of death and all those kinds of? Because the rabbis literally saw Passover as a sign of their idea of future redemption, which really was resurrection, the whole big thing. But there's more to it than that.
Sure, and obviously today, a lot of you probably know, today was Good Friday, and Sunday is Easter Sunday. It's not always the case that Passover and Easter come together in our calendars, but sometimes they do. But in the narrative, in the story of the New Testament, they are deeply connected, because the Last Supper is a Passover Seder. So this is all connected, in the idea that somehow in the end there is redemption that comes out of loss. It's such a powerful thing. But Elijah the prophet is the harbinger of the Messiah. He's the one, the herald of the Messiah, who's going to say, it's going to happen, Jews. It's going to happen. And I think, in some ways, back to your idea, the idea that every single year we come back and say, this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year. That's holding on to hope. But we know on some deep level, it's probably not going to happen. Sorry, it's probably not going to happen. But you know what? We're going to hold on to that. And so, brokenness, the matzah is broken, and I'm going to live my life as if there is the end of death, the end of suffering, the end of war, the end of injustice and corruption and all the things, the ugliness of the world. This is going to be the year it's over. Do I believe it's really going to happen this year? Probably not, but I'm still going to set a chair out for Elijah.
It works on a national level. You know, we hope for peace for nations. We hope for peace for peoples. We hope for reconciliation between the races, you name it. I think it also works individually, that life has brokenness. Life, we know that, and that's not a trite statement, but it's when you experience it, it's profound and deep. And somehow or another, we're able to muster, or we try to muster hope from the midst of brokenness. And I'm always moved, and I admire people. In our world, we encounter people who are often in a great deal of pain. And I'm always moved when I see them later, and they're smiling. And their lives are picking up, and their lives are being rebuilt. And I had someone actually did a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and the groom, who had lost his beloved wife, was marrying a woman who he found love again. And he said that about his partner, he said, she taught me to live with my limp. And I just thought that was a beautiful image to hold on to, right? It never goes away. Live with his limp. In other words, the loss of his beloved spouse, he found new love. And that was the capacity to, and that's, we learn to live with our limps, but they never go away. We learn to walk strongly with them.
Sure, Koach. Thank you.